Welcome to this episode of Ponderings and Musings of an Ordinary Man. I'm your host, Greg Jacobs. Well, I'm really excited today for my guest on this podcast. It's Charles Mwungura, and he is Rwandan. For those of you that don't know, Rwanda is a country in Africa, in the continent of Africa. And I'll just kind of tell you about the premise of the topic for this podcast, and then we're going to kind of, dive into how I got to meet Charles, why he is here in the United States, things like that. So the topic is going to be based off of kind of Rwandan community versus American community. It's going to be really kind of a very big difference if you're an American to hear some of the differences. That's why I decided to do this podcast. Because I knew it was going to be really an educational experience more than anything for everybody else. So, Charles, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Greg.
So, just to give you a little bit of background with Charles, Charles came over here from Rwanda to Kentucky in 2019. He basically came over to be a missionary to the immigrant community in the Louisville, Kentucky area from Rwanda. He is a pastor. He doesn't really consider himself an American pastor per se, as much as a missionary to the immigrant population that happens to be a pastor in an American church at Southeast Christian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. He came over in 2019. His wife and kids came over in 2023, Esperanza and their 4 children. And how I got to know Charles was unfortunate, to say the least. July 24th of 24, his son Isaac drowned and passed away. I basically heard about this through the church, through the media and the news. And I looked up Charles. I had some contacts of friends that knew his telephone number, and I reached out to him. And the rest is history, as they say. We texted, we talked on the phone, and then we started getting together at Starbucks, monthly basis, and just kind of helping him on his grief journey. As a lot of you know, I lost my son, David Michael Jacobs, December 23rd of 2020. From an auto accident. So we both had a commonality, I would say, in the fact of grief. But there's so much more that we have in commonality, whether it's just being Christians, just being friends. It's not just based off of grief. It was at the beginning, but I'm just happy to call him my friend. And there's just so much more about him I just wanted to share with you in the world. So, Charles, if you don't mind, just kind of share with our listeners just really the whole beginning process of what brought you to the United States.
So then after, but also I was connected to Southeast before I moved here. Southeast Christian Church was kind of my partner back in Kenya. I used to connect with their mission programs. They used to come in Kenya, and we connected with one of the mission director called Charlie. So he was kind of my connection to Southeast. So when I moved here, I found Southeast, they have a vision of reaching out to immigrant community. And I was one of the candidates they wanted to use as a bridge to make sure they reach out to community at that time, connected to more like Rwandese, Congolese, and especially East African community. That's where I came, and that's where I served for almost 15 years. So I was more connected to that community. That's how I started working and serving with Southeast Christian Church.
And during that time, from 2019 to 2023, before your wife Esperanza could come over here with the kids, what did that look like for you? I mean, obviously you missed them during that time.
That was the hardest time that I never experienced before, because being away from my family, it's like I had a part of me was left behind when I moved here. So I was alone, and then, there's so many frustration, the confusion. I couldn't even do what I was supposed to do well.
And did she have to apply for asylum as well to come over here?
No. So once you have asylum, I think your family has to come as a beneficiaries of that asylum. Yeah. Gotcha. But also she has to go through the long process from immigration, because the embassy of US in Kenya, they had also to take her through the process, make sure who is coming and the why. And she has to go through the process, almost 3 years of the
Wow.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes without saying, we're not going to go down any rabbit holes on this podcast, but it definitely goes without saying that immigration is a very controversial buzz topic in
Yes.
2026. It has been for a
Mhm.
while. But we see a lot of rights and wrongs and, whatever, and there's always differing opinions on things
Mhm. Mhm.
with that. But I could just say that I am a better man for knowing you and having you in my life as a friend. And I'm so glad that you did go through that process. And, for those that don't know, Congo, when you said you were born there, is a
Mhm.
very, very rough place.
Yeah.
We were talking even this morning over coffee when we decided to do this podcast just about the murders that have taken place in the continent of Africa alone with Boko Haram and the Christians that have been killed and
Yeah.
martyred,
Yeah.
and just a lot of things.
Mhm.
Most people, I think, when they think of Africa, they think of the Lion King movie and the Great
Wow.
Sahara and some giraffes running around, some lions. And yes, that's
Mhm.
accurate, but there's so much more to that
Yeah.
as well. So. I want to give you the opportunity. So I have two podcasts. I have one, Turning Grief into Growth, A Journey of Transformation. In that we focus more on the grief aspect, which is how we met. It's how we, came about in our friendship.
Yeah.
This one, Ponderings and Musings of an Ordinary Man, focus more on just different topics that we want to kind of delve into. So this one's going to dive into the topic of community more, but I do want to give you the platform and the opportunity just to kind of share your journey since July 24th of 24, since Isaac passed, and what that has looked like for you.
Yeah, I think that journey was it is up and down. Some days are good and other days are bad. So I think it's very hard to describe because every day is different from another day. So sometimes I'm good, and the other time I feel like started grieving in the morning. And there's a time of crying and also trying a time of just rejoicing with others. But for maybe last year and a half now, it's almost same. I think nothing changed. I've been asking so many friends how long it takes for someone to forget.
Mm.
They told me you will never, never forget. I think you are one of the people who really helped me through this process. And I'm so, so thankful for you.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I think that you just don't know what you don't know when you
Yeah.
encounter things like that. You had a little different, I would say, title, maybe, as far as your occupation, missionary, pastor, shepherd of a
Mm,
flock,
mhm.
where it's kind of expected of you to put on a shiny, bright face
Yeah.
all the time, and maybe you don't feel that way. So, you and I have talked about that at length as far as making sure that you're taking time for yourself and that it's okay,
Mm,
to
mm,
question God even and
mm.
ask those, why questions with that. So, in a lot of our conversations over the last year and a half, because we've had several of them in
Mm.
person at Starbucks drinking coffee,
Yeah.
one of the things that has really just kind of resonated with me is the fact of community. And a lot of this kind of was brought to light for me in hearing how people rallied around you in your grief journey. I didn't, I've had that, but not like you did. I once heard a podcast of an American family who was over in Africa, and they were missionaries to Africa. So reverse from you, and they
Mm,
lost their son while over there. And they talk about how these Swahili gentlemen would walk 50 miles barefoot to try to get to them, to console
mm.
them. And just, a huge outpouring versus a lot of times how Americans handle things. I don't think America handles grief very well. I really don't. I don't think that we know how to process it. I don't think we know how to deal with it. Even in Mexico and Latin American cultures, you'll have like Day of the Dead and some, of the emphasis like that. That's a lot more emphatic on paying respect, helping those that are going through grief type aspect. For us, it's pretty much like, well, you had the viewing and you had the funeral and you've got 30 days and that's it. You might even get a Family Medical Leave Act for a few more weeks unpaid or something like that. But
Mm.
the sympathy cards stopped coming 30 days out when you go out to the mailbox. I've heard that so many times. It was real in my life where it was like, you had sympathy cards coming every day, and then like day 30 or 31, you out to the mailbox and there's nothing there. So
Mm.
that really kind of brought to light the topic of community. So I do want to kind of talk about community as a whole in just a second, but I want you to kind of shed some light on what it was like when Isaac died in July of 24 in a drowning accident, and how people came from all over the world, how many people came to the funeral, and just kind of what that looked like.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for putting clarity on our differences. I think that's what I didn't know before, that we are different. But when I lost Isaac, I was in two community. One, I was more involved in American community because I work with them. But also I had my community from where I came from, especially East African community. So it was not easy. I know you know this. During the grief, the world always fell. There is no one that can even touch the wounds. So people can try to encourage you, write emails, and tell you good words of hope, but that you, I think you don't even feel whatever they're telling you. You don't understand. You don't connect with the words, and even people they don't have somewhat to express how deep it is and how hard it is. But the presence of community, I think the presence of community, that was the only things that I felt is really sustaining me during that wounded hearts where I couldn't even express how hard it is. But their presence was amazing. And another thing that I can tell you, the community that I had, they didn't just show up, but also I just felt like they're helping me to carry the weight of the pain that I had.
Mm.
So there's so many people who showed up. I think the same day I lost people, I had so many friends, co-workers and employees, but also my house was full. My house was full almost a week. Then the second week, people showed up from every corner of the world, from Canada, from Australia, and from US and different states. Then I had almost 2,400 showed up during the burial day. So we didn't even,
2,400 people showed up for his burial.
yes.
Wow.
So that was amazing. That was amazing. That's what I told you, that I felt like they're helping me to carry the weight of my pain and my sorrow. So their presence was so louder than any other thing that I can tell you. So I think that's what I can tell you. It was really amazing. And I'm so thankful for our community and those four friends.
You know, I wanted to drill down on that because I think it's so important to mention that was an event, but I don't think it stops there. I think for
Mm.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's people willing to pay thousands of dollars last minute, day before airfare from Europe, from Canada, from Australia, from Africa, from all over the world. And, I still get people in Shelbyville, Kentucky, where I live, that come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm sorry I wasn't there for your son's funeral." And they live here,
Mm.
and it was
Mm.
down the street. And
Mm.
I'm not perclumped by that. I'm not upset. I'm not,
Mm.
like, I can't believe you weren't there. I think it's just a different set of expectations that Americans have on what community is. We can't relate with that. We can't understand that for the most part. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn for the majority of
Mm.
Americans. But I listened to you over the last year and a half. I've listened about how people have rallied around you and have been there. And it wasn't just the first week or second week. It's been ongoing. And I just think it's important to point out what you had said about they helped you carry the load. So obviously, this not being the grief podcast, I want to kind of transfer that into what are some other loads that maybe the community that you're in help each other carry? What does that look like?
I think it's kind of common to everyone. The loss always brings emotional. Um, I mean, loss, and if I can mean it, there is a spiritual. effect, there was also even physical exhaustion. You feel like you are tired, you don't have the same strength. So sometimes it was even hard for us to be committed and to do the normal work. But people showed up and helped us, even at home. They clean and cook, and they were there. Their presence was there to help us. Because during that time, we couldn't even stand up and go and cook. But my wife had friends who showed up and helped her. But also emotional side, we had so many people who were just with us, talk to us, communicate to us, and it took almost a year. People continue coming and visiting and communicating. It was really good to have them around. I don't know, but I think they touched every area of our lives, and then all a dimension of our lives has been touched by their presence. They've been supporting them, even financially. Some of them, they gave us money because during that time we couldn't go to work for almost a month, but they were giving gifts of money and the food and the other things. So that was amazing. Well, that was beyond the words and beyond the presence.
It reminds me of the Bible story of, is it three or four men that climb up on the roof and lower their friend into the roof where Jesus was
Yes,
to get
yes.
healing? It reminds me of almost a New Testament model of the church when you're talking about if there is a need, even financially, to step up. It just
Mm,
reminds me of service above self, thinking of others, not siloing ourselves into our little community and our own homeowners association in our neighborhood, and not reaching out. So for you, you've experienced this in the last year and a half, but I know because of talking with you, it's not just the grief journey. It's not just because of Isaac. You were doing this before. You were
mhm.
investing in people's lives and they in your life. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have flown, all the way around the world
Mm.
to come see you. So, what does that look like outside the bounds of grief, outside of Isaac passing away? um, whether it's a meal that you all share, whether it's a Sunday get together. A lot of times we'll go to church and we're out of the church within like 50 minutes, for example. What does it
Mm.
look like for you all to worship? Is it different as far as the time frame and how much time you spend together?
I think let me just take you back about our community before we go to maybe to church
Yeah.
fellowship. So I think yeah, I think for African, there is a philosophy from African context called Ubuntu. It expresses some word that can maybe summarize some of the sense of community that we have as African. He said, I am because we are. That's
Mm,
how we think. So our identity is communal. Uh, there's no individual way of living. We just live as a community. So I am because they are there. So my existence is because of community. Everything that I do is because of them. So let me come back to what you just came to ask about our church. So the church for us is not just one area. As you remember the early church in the book of Acts, chapter 2, you can remember almost four pillars of the church. One, they were devoted to teachings. The second, they were devoted to fellowship and the share meal. And the others was prayer.
mm,
So those are pillars of the church, actually. So for us, we have a time of sermon, not just come and listen to someone, then you go back. We do consider fellowship as a part of Sunday programs, as a part of whenever we meet, we need a time of listening to the word of God, but also fellowship with one another.
mm,
So every service, we do have almost 2 hours service. We There is a time after service, we meet and talk. We don't rush and go home. We go at the outside, the atrium, then we have time to connect, talk, and ask how are you doing, and we have that time of fellowship. And also sometimes, once in a while, we do have also prepare a meal. We come with the meal at church, and then after service, we go and share meal together. So it's just beyond coming and listen to the word of God and then go, but also it's time of fellowship.
So you see that, I guess I should parse out when I talk about Americans. You do see that more in the Black African American communities here in the United States more than you do the white communities. And that's not a racist comment. It's a cultural comment that I do believe has infiltrated in where it's longer church services. There's more family reunions in the Black communities than there
Mhm,
are the white.
mhm.
There's more sense of community of spending time with each other, even as Americanized as they might be. You
Yeah,
do see that more. So
yeah,
I do think there's a lesson to be learned from the white culture here in America on community and spending more
yeah.
time. And when I say community, like I said, I'm not talking about the homeowners association or going to a Rotary Club meeting or
Mm,
just waving at somebody out in the yard cutting their grass as you're driving by.
mm,
There's just not this sense of cohesion.
yeah.
I sense a lot more divisiveness in
Mm,
our culture today than I've ever experienced before. I know
mm,
I'm getting ready to turn 52.
mm.
So I've seen a little bit, but it just seems like there's a lot more divisiveness versus cohesion. So what are the benefits that you can say that you experience in community that maybe we as Americans can learn more about that would benefit us?
Here, brother, let me tell you, just for me, I do what I know. The purpose of life, you are not born for you.
Mm.
I know you are born for someone. I think it's not just about community as we talk, but we always lose a sense of purpose of life. When we lose community, it's not just about loss of community, but also you miss the purpose of life. You miss the meaning
Wow.
of being born. So for me, I think it's good to know that you are not born for you are born for someone, your neighbor, someone who is there. So if you focus on yourself, you ended up feeling like there is a big vacuum of living. Why do I live? Then you don't understand the meaning of living, even though you
Mm.
have so many things. So yeah, that's what I can tell you.
I think I think that hit the nail on the head. I mean, when you look at what is the absence of light, darkness, when you look at the absence of community, what do you have? You have isolationism, you
Mhm.
have depression, you have mental
Mm,
health issues.
mm,
I went on Google before we dialed into this call, and I just
mm,
looked at the suicide rates in Rwanda versus the United States of America. And this is numbers
mm,
as of 2021. In Rwanda, the suicide rates were 5 to 10 people per 100,000. In America, it's 15 to 20 people per 100,000.
mm.
So you could say that the suicide rates are, 3 times higher here than in Rwanda. Now, I will say that there are other countries in Africa that have higher suicide rates. I think there's still less than America.
Mhm.
But I think that goes a lot to what you just said that we are born for a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's not a selfish, self-centered me,
Mhm.
egocentric
Mm.
aspect. It's about really, serving others, loving on
Yes.
others, being there. And yes, it starts with, you have to love and respect yourself.
Mhm.
I get that. And then, your family and everything. But, when was the last time that you just hugged a stranger or just showed some love to your neighbor?
Yeah. Yeah.
We tend to take cookies to new neighbors that maybe moved in
Mm.
or around Christmas time. But when was the last time you
Mm.
just knocked on their door when they
Yeah.
weren't out cutting the grass and just said, "Hey, I just wanted to see how you're doing in life. Anything
Yeah.
you want to talk about? I want to share a little bit about my life." And just being communal, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Man, I
Wow.
don't know. It's just
That's
a kind of a
mm.
mind blowing
Mm.
concept of you're born for a purpose.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about self care and me
Mm.
time. I'm
Yep.
big on that.
Mm.
Me time and self care is not selfishness. It is
Yes.
not meant to take time away from others. It's the whole oxygen mask on the plane mentality. Make sure that you put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your
Mm,
children.
mm, mm.
So I do feel like it's very important that we take me time and we recharge our batteries.
Yes.
That looks different for everybody. For example, I like going antiquing. Never thought that would ever, like that. I've started collecting vintage German beer steins that are 145, plus
Wow.
years old. I just think the
Wow.
history behind it, the engraving, the etching, all that stuff.
Mm, mm,
So I enjoy the thrill of the hunt with stuff like that. So everybody's got different things that they do. I like reading thriller novels, fiction novels. So I try to carve out some me time on a regular basis so that I could kind of recharge my batteries and I could be whole for everybody else. Is that when we talk about community, can you have too much community? Can it be so much where there's people around all the time that you don't get a chance to have just some me time? What does that look like? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think it's possible. And that's one of the things that I've been learning when I came here because it's very important for us. Sometimes you can be in a community most of your time and you are just serving. Oh, yes, being in a community most of the time, or you are doing something. But also, I think we need the time, as you mentioned, about recharging ourselves. So I think that's one thing that I've been learning working here and serving with the American. I really love the time of being alone and the commit to what I love. And sometimes also me time can be time with my family.
Mhm.
It's not just me as me. When I'm with my wife and my children, I feel like this is me time. I can process, I can be vulnerable as I can. I can just be me where I don't try to cover something. So when we're in a community, sometimes you always try to cover yourself because, yeah, as I told you before, so our culture is a culture of honor and shame. So you always try to cover and to make sure you don't shame anyone. So that time of behaving, you try yourself. Let me just go away and be me. Um, but also, it was hard for me to know what I love because I always enjoyed to be in a community. Um, but recently I started analyzing. I found like it's good for me to go away. One, read the Bible because I love reading Bible and the other books. And also music. We have so many Christian music, especially worship songs. I'm always, I want to go just away and then spend that time when I listen to music and then I read books.
That's good.
I, yeah,
No, I listen to Spotify. I've got these worship albums on there with like, I think 500 different worship songs or something. My daughter actually made the playlist and I
wow.
copied it, but I listen to that every morning when I'm on my computer just doing
Mm-hmm.
audit prep. And it's just, I feel like you're filtering good into
Yeah.
your spirit and you're listening to
Mm-hmm.
that. I think there was an important part and point that you called out there, Charles, and that is that you don't, me time does not have to be isolated, just you. It could be with
Mm-hmm.
your family, it could be with
Yeah.
other friends,
Mm-hmm.
something that recharges your battery. So I think that's a good kind of caveat to that. Hence the me time thinking just a solo,
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah. But
Let me
also,
go,
I
go
think,
ahead.
oh, sorry. But also, I think it's good to know when sometimes you are isolated or you have me time, you better be more intentional on what you're going to listen. Is it going to feed you, to help you to strengthen your soul? But sometimes we choose without even knowing what are we choosing for our me time. So, and I think nothing goes in your spirit, in your emotional life, in your life without passing through your senses.
Mm,
What are you going to be feeding your soul for you to regain strength?
yeah.
I think that's what I've been looking. Yes, I may have hobbies, but also have to be more intentional on how I choose the environment, the community, or the music, whatever I'm going to listen. Make sure it's not just going to listen, but also it's going to strengthen me as well spiritually.
Yeah, that's great. I think that I call it a self-evaluation daily, where we
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have to take a daily self-evaluation of our lives and kind of find out if there's something that's lacking that I need to fill, whether it's like, listening to worship music, for example, that I just need to uplift my spirit. I need to not be discouraged,
Hmm.
depressed, whatever it might be. Or it could be that I have a friend that actually really needs to have dinner with me, because he's struggling in his grief journey, whatever it might be, where I'm
Mm.
just kind of available and listening. And I think a lot of that comes from listening to the Holy Spirit and just being available more than anything. Born for a
Mm.
purpose. Man, I like
Yeah.
that. That should probably be the title more than the community aspect. But
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. So, what can you say? What advice would you give Americans? I'm just going to put it. I'm going to put the blanket of Americans on there, fully acknowledging, like I said, that a lot of African American communities do have more family reunions than the white communities do. They do have a lot longer church services. They have a lot more lunches after on Sunday afternoons, spend a lot more time. But with that being said, what advice generically would you give the American communities on how to establish community more, like baby steps,
Yeah.
little bites? What would you suggest?
Yeah, for me, I can just remind them that you are not born to be alone. I think that's one thing. That's the best environment for you to thrive, to live, that you are born to be is in a community.
Mm,
So you are not born to be isolated. You are not born for you. So the only place that God created you for is to be alone. You can go in the book of Genesis. You see Adam. The guy saw it. He saw that the loneliness was there. That's why he created his wife. So you were created to be with the community. That's one. The second, it's not just to be in a community for yourself, but also your purpose is in a community. You were born, you were created, you were here for a community as well. That's another thing that you have to know. And also for those who are going through the grief and pain, I know, I think grief and pain heals best when you're in a community. The best way of healing is to just go to community. That's the best way. Whatever you can read books, you can do whatever, but the presence of people in your life, I think that's a very good remedy I can recommend for so many people. And we are all going through different genre of grief and pain, but it's good to remember that I have to go back to community. Uh, Isolation, I think it's not it's not healthy for them. It's not good for them. So I think we have to move back to community. As a Christian, I do know that I was born to be in a community.
So we don't have to do life alone, is what I'm really
Yes.
hearing. I mean,
You
I'm,
don't
I'm
have to do life alone. We don't have to suffer alone. We don't, I think everything is just meant to be in a community.
mm.
Mm.
There's a couple things I was thinking about as you were talking about that. We're in year 2026, and I go to Planet Fitness and work out. I don't go to get big. I don't go to lose weight. I go for my mental health is really why I
Mhm.
go.
Mm.
And also, it's just another form of community, I think, for me. But I'm amazed at how many people have, Apple iPods in their ear and headphones on. And it's
Mm.
almost this warning of back off. I don't want to talk. Leave me alone.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
drive around communities and I see 6 foot privacy fences and people hiding
Yes.
behind their privacy fences, barbecuing,
Mhm.
for one or two or three people.
Mm.
And gone are the days of, the 80s, where people were, outside, walking around. It was almost like a continual July 4th parade. Not really, but there was people out riding bikes and talking and walking their dogs. And I just feel like we've turned into more of an isolated society. So
Yeah.
I say all of that not as a demeaning, depressing aspect of where we are as a culture, but for those listeners that are listening, there we can have an impact. We can
Mm.
change that in our own sphere of influence that we're in. our own little circle. And I think, to Charles' point, we were born for a purpose and we were made not to live and do life alone. That doesn't have to be, a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a
Yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah.
It could be friendships, it could be,
Yes.
siblings,
Hmm.
whatever it might be. But I just encourage people to find their community. I just find that that is so important. Um, what is your community? Where can you find that you can blossom and thrive and that people aren't going to be judgmental about decisions
Mm,
you've made, but they're going to encourage you along on this
yeah.
journey. And I would say, just kind of as a carve out to that, understand that everybody is on a different journey. Everybody is at a different maturity
Yes.
in their
That's true.
relationship with life, with God, with family, with friends,
Mhm.
and be a mentor. Come alongside people.
Mhm.
We don't have enough of that out there either. So, Charles, I think just kind of in closing, what else do you want to say? You've got the floor, just on this topic or any other topic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been hearing so many Americans talking about vulnerability, how to be vulnerable to one another. I think that's one of the things that I noticed. There is no way you can be vulnerable without building a relationship with people.
Mm,
And
mm,
we are more offended with everything because we never developed a relationship, a strong bond of a relationship. As I know, being with you for almost 2 years now, a year and a half, so there is a way we have such a bond of connection. Whatever time I know, there is no bad intention behind it because we started by building relationships. We connect well, we know each other well. So your message, I know what you mean without even coming up with assumptions. So if you don't come to community, anything that you hear around will offend you because you don't have relationship with them. And it will be hard for us to be able to grow and also serve and also make an impact. So I think it's good to, and also there is something that I can mention about. I've been telling some of the people from our church that there is a spiritual ecosystem that we have to create. It's a community. So if you want to grow and to thrive in your life, you need to go back to community, find a community, and also have a strong bond of relationship with them. I think that's what I can just tell them.
yeah. Well, I like a spiritual ecosystem. Boy, isn't that
Mhm.
isn't that good? So really, kind of in summation, um, you're born for a purpose. You're not born to be
Mm,
alone. And
mm.
in order to form community, you really need to be authentic and vulnerable and let your guard down. Don't live a life with a fake facade and just be
Yeah,
vulnerable.
that's wonderful. That's
That's
wonderful. Yeah.
that's the only way you can really grow and heal and
Hmm.
learn in life. So, Charles, I can't thank you enough. I think that really an important takeaway is, community should transcend culture. It's
Yeah.
not just about a certain culture. It should
Hmm.
transcend that. And I think we could all learn from each other. So thank you so much for joining today.
You are most welcome. Thank you so much, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to Ponderings and Musings of an Ordinary Man. I hope today's episode brought you a bit of inspiration. If you've enjoyed it, please remember to follow, like, or subscribe on your favorite platform so you never miss what's coming next. I can't wait to share future episodes with you. Until next time,